What's going on, guys? As you can see, I am down in the trenches. No, I'm just kidding. I'm down in my basement. Looks a little rough on the wall, but my basement is amazing. You just can't see the full view. Maybe you will another time. But anyways, we got a great episode in store. Another week of PWTB. Jake, Jordan, how we doing?
We're doing
Good,
all right.
man.
That's
Yeah,
good.
we're doing good. Yeah,
Yeah, Jake is doing especially good, and we'll just jump right into that right now. So the Florida Panthers have won back-to-back Stanley Cups. It's official. Jake, let's get a celebration first. Jake, what do you want to give like a victory speech for us or celebrate or who do you want to thank? Like players? Yeah, who do you want to give credit to?
number one is exactly how the announcer said it. It's Panther perfection as we go back to back. I will give the shout out to Brad Marchand. Without Brad Marchand, Panthers wouldn't win the Stanley Cup. Without Sam Reinhart, the Panthers wouldn't be here. Without the fourth line, the Panthers would not have come down from 2-0 against the Maple Leafs to win that series.
Yeah.
The fourth line is why we are champions right now.
What about the fans though? Because as Jordan has said, especially when we're over here, he would say it's half empty in Sunrise sometimes. What would you say to that? What would you say to the fans? Did they come through enough?
I would say in games 4 and 6, fans were loud.
Jordan, we
That
agree? Do we
place
agree,
was
Jordan?
rocking.
Do we agree, Jordan, with that, or do we disagree?
Um, what I would say is, well, what I was really looking at was before the game, the national anthems, right? You had all of the crowd up in Edmonton singing along to the Canadian national anthem, like by themselves without the person singing it, and then down in Sunrise, you didn't. So that to me, you know, so that's where I don't think the Panthers fans really showed up, so to speak, but it was loud, like Jake said. I mean, they showed up, supported their team, so I'll give them credit for that.
No, absolutely. And yeah, just okay, so that I just wanted to get Jake's initial celebration right there. But yeah, the Florida Panthers, they've been on a pretty magical run. 2022 best regular season record in the NHL. 2023, they make it to the Stanley Cup, don't finish it off, and then now 2024, although 2024 was a little shaky, they did win. And then this year, I think they looked way more dominant, especially down the stretch. I mean, it's not like Edmonton was some like wild card team that just made it there. I mean, they were a stacked team, and Florida just, especially in the last two games, just dismantled them. So yeah, Florida's looking legit. And before I throw it around to my hockey experts, I guess I put a poll up on PWTB for life, by the way, the number four on Instagram. Go check that out. I put a poll up because I was curious are the Florida Panthers a dynasty? And 90% of people said yes. Right now, the 2020 Florida Panthers, are they a dynasty right now? And
Right.
people say yes. Uh, so I say at least the PWTV verdict is in. But yeah, Florida Panthers, national champs.
I think you gotta win three in the decade to be considered a dynasty. And I think the Florida Panthers will be back in the playoffs next year, but to win it though, who knows? The Panthers are definitely a dominant team. I think we're gonna resign Sam Bennett. I think we might Sergei Bobrovsky. I don't think he's gonna retire. He's still under contract with the Panthers, so hopefully he'll be back for the 2026 season. I think Brad Marchand, even though there's a lot of speculation of him actually going to the Maple Leafs, I don't think there's any truth to that. So hopefully he'll be back with Florida as well. And Florida's going to have most of the same players from this year's run. Hopefully they can make a run in 2026.
All right, so I just wanted to start off by saying, nope, like I'm not trying to take anything away from the Panthers. Like spectacular run, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. Jake and every other Panthers fan should be proud up there. But to me, it just feels like going back to back has lost a little bit of its luster. The Penguins did it in 16 and 17, right? And that was the first time it had been done in 19 years since the Red Wings did it in 97, 98, I believe. And then you had the Lightning do it in 2020 and 2021. Now the Panthers in 2024 and 2025. It's after going 20 years and not having a repeat Stanley Cup champion, it's now happened 3 times in the last decade. So, like I said, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Panthers' spectacular run, but it just feels like going back to back has lost a little bit of its importance.
I think so. Going back to back, obviously, you still gotta build a spectacular team, which the
You
Panthers
do,
have done from the
you do.
ground
You're right.
up. Basically, Alexander Barkov was the draft pick of the Panthers. Aaron Ekblad, I believe, was drafted. Um, Panthers acquired Carter Verhaeghe from Tampa Bay, which, by the way, this is Carter Verhaeghe's third Stanley Cup, and he's only been in the NSL for 6 seasons. I just thought that was an interesting factoid about. I just thought that was an interesting fact to bring up. They traded for Sergei Bobrovsky, signing him to a big contract, who's most Panther fans didn't understand that big contract, but now I think winning back-to-back championships they see, and
He's
obviously
kind of
the
he's kind of
big
validated
couple
it.
additions.
He's validated it.
Wait, what? What happened?
He's validated the big contract, winning back-to-back championships now.
Oh yeah, definitely back-to-back Stanley Cups. I don't think he's gonna retire. Many people thought, winning after the Stanley Cup this year, he was gonna retire, but I don't think he's going to. I think he's coming back for more. Obviously the other two big additions with Matthew Tkachuk from Calgary for Jonathan Huberdeau, and then obviously trading for Brad Marchand at the deadline.
Yeah, those were definitely big additions, and you saw it in the Stanley Cup final, especially with Brad Marchand. I believe he scored 6 goals in the series, including 2 of them in Game 2, I believe, including the double overtime winner.
Yep, that double overtime winner was one to remember for the centuries. Evan, you got anything to add on that, man?
I guess I would just say, um, I see where Jordan's coming from, that it has, since it's happened now 3 times in the 2010s and 2020s, back-to-back champions. I agree with the point he's making. It needs to be noted that it doesn't make it any less impressive. I think
It doesn't. It
it
doesn't. I said congratulations to the Panthers, their fans. Like back-to-back championships is impressive. It is. I'm not
absolutely.
taking it
Yeah,
away.
you're not, Jordan, you're not wrong with anything you're saying. I just want to definitely highlight it though, that in any of the four major sports, NFL, MLB, NBA, or NHL, I would if there was, well, MLB is a little iffy now if the Dodgers win it back to back this year, but we'll save that for another conversation.
Yeah,
But in generally in the four major sports, if you win it back to back, that's impressive. That's super impressive. So Jordan makes a good point that it's lost a little bit its luster. It's not historic. But I wanted to know that. But I also wanted to know, so what happens with Edmonton now? You get to the Stanley Cup 2 seasons in a row. You got to be feeling like, what do we need to do? How do we get over the hump? What do you guys think they need to do?
Well,
I think Edmonton just goes into a rebuilding phase. I heard earlier that Connor McDavid might be leaving Edmonton, so I
But
think that was pretty interesting.
Do you think that'd be
Yeah.
voluntary? Do you think they're like, well, we're gonna blow it up because we're not there, or do you think, Connor McDavid's leaving? Like, do you think they might be forced into that, or do they think, oh yeah, we need to rebuild? Like, what do you think it is?
Well, I think both of it. I think Connor McDavid, leaving is going to kind of force him into a rebuild, and Edmonton's going to basically be like, "Hey, look, we've made it to the Stanley Cup, but we've been dominated by the Panthers the last 2 years. So what do we need to do to get over that hump?" And then they'll eventually going to go into a rebuild, like I said, with Connor McDavid leaving.
okay, so what I will say is I don't think that the Oilers were exactly dominated last year. I mean, you look at it, yes, they fell behind 3-0, but they won 4, 5, and 6 and lost by 1 goal in Game 7 last year. But this year, yes, it was domination by the Panthers. I honestly don't know how the series went to 6 because you look at it, Edmonton's two wins in a series were both in overtime, games 1 and 4, I believe. Um, and as
Game
for the
five,
but as for the rebuilding,
game four.
I don't think Edmonton should go into a rebuild yet because, well, they're right there, right? 2024, they're 1 win away from the Stanley Cup. 2025, they're 2 wins away from the Stanley Cup. I don't think that, you feel like you're right there. You're kind of in win now mode. Um, to me, you just have to go out and get a superstar. Maybe Mitch Marner. We'll see how that goes. But for me, Edmonton is right there. They might just need one more piece to get them over the hump.
I mean, that's just sort of how I take it. Like, it'd be one thing if you were a first round exit, or if you were like, the Carolina Hurricanes, where like you just get obliterated in the conference championship. But like, they're right there. Like, they were 2 games away, and they were 1 game away last year. Like, it'd just be hard as a fan, but also just the GM to swallow that. Wow, now we got to rebuild, but we were right there with a championship. That would be tough to swallow for me, at least.
Well, just one more thing that I will add to this conversation. The last team that attempted a three-peat came 2 wins away. So we'll see what happens to the Panthers next season.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
And when that last team was, Gordon?
The Tampa Bay Lightning attempted a three-peat in 2022, eventually losing to the Colorado Avalanche in 6 games.
Yep, and Colorado is the favorite to win the 2026 Stanley Cup, and not
Well,
the Florida Panthers.
according to ESPN Bet, the Edmonton Oilers, Colorado Avalanche, and Florida Panthers are all 7-1 to win the 2026 Stanley Cup. So we'll see how that turns out.
That would not be if you had $100, that would not be the worst bet to just put it on Florida right now. Or actually, their odds might drop. I think their odds might drop because people are going to be like, no way they're going to three-peat. So
I
I'd
would personally
maybe
put on
give it
Colorado, but
okay, Colorado, maybe give it a couple months. Florida's odds drop, and then that's not a bad bet, in my opinion. If you just got $100, so let's let it ride.
I mean, 7-1, that's pretty good odds.
That's 7-1, but I think it's going to get better. That's the only reason why I would wait. Yeah.